All right, welcome to the All Access Entertainment Podcast. I'm your host, Joseph Bruen. We're keeping it in the family this week. This week, the son of a wrestling legend. Ladies and gentlemen, Gunnar Eudy, the son of Sycho Sid. Gunnar, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Joseph.
It's a pleasure to have you here and kind of deep dive into, growing up with the man, the myth, and the legend that is your father, Sycho Sid. Being a big part of the wrestling world for such a long time, and just did so much for the business. So kind of rewinding a little bit, growing up as a kid, when did you first discover pro wrestling before you knew that your dad was doing it?
I would say I probably first discovered it on a Nintendo 64 playing the old Legends of Wrestling, which, had the best graphics in the world if you want to compare it to today's games. I feel like, I just found my Nintendo 64 the other day and drug it out. I'm going to order a power cord for it and see if it still works. It worked when I put it up. It's just, as far as I could remember.
Yeah.
But I would say me and my cousins upstairs stomping around, we take the mattress off the bed, put it on the floor, we're in there suplex and body slamming each other and playing wrestling, Legends Wrestling on Nintendo 64. That's probably where I really first came into looking at it, because I was really young when my dad broke his leg, for starters. So we could just keep that in mind. But the time that he was still actively on the big screen, my mom didn't really want us watching it because she was always afraid he would get hurt. And because he did get hurt a lot, especially like, I do remember, it was like, I don't even know if I remember it or if there's a home video of it. It's like we're doing Halloween here at the house. Dad's gone on the road, Halloween Havoc, him and Goldberg, and he's just, bleeding like a stuck pig. And I think it just small memories like that, but I don't really have a whole lot of memories of the old wrestling things. I have memories that we made ourselves going around, newer small memories that to me were, in my stance, more important than the WrestleManias of the world.
Yeah. What was it like, when your dad was on the road during those times? What was it like being able to, well, first knowing that he's on the road, but being able to watch him on TV?
Once again, I was really young, so it's like, to me, it was normal, because I was born into it. So, it's one of those things. My brother, he's 10 years older than me. He has a lot more memories than that. He got to go to the wrestling shows with RoboCop and all that stuff, get all the pictures and stuff. For me, I don't really remember it. The most thing I remember is my mom trying to, protect us from viewing it.
Yeah.
So to speak. We could watch the matches after she watched them.
Sure.
And then still, even after he broke his leg, watching the reruns and stuff, like the leg break video was never allowed to be played in our house.
Wow.
If you people would come over and they would mention it and get kicked out. It was some tough times there for a little bit, real hard up, not hard up on cash, but just hard up in, him being home out of work, frustrated in the way everything went down. The way that it was handled, we broke his leg, WCW was going under, going back to WWF, being sold out, all that. So it was a whole, a big botch with the contracts and everything. And he just was not in a good mood for years.
And fast forward, years later when you were older, were you able to talk to your dad about that? Did he have anything to say about that time period with the injury?
I can remember this. I remember, probably 10 years old, the home phone rings, the one that's got the line that goes from the kitchen to the living room. And I pick it up and I answer the phone. It's Vince McMahon on the phone. I was like, who's this? He says, Vince McMahon. I said, so, okay, hold on a second. I said, Dad, Vince McMahon just called. He's on the phone. He wants to talk to you. Hang up the fucking phone. Click, just hung up on him. And that kind of went round and round for several years. Vince, did, only called himself personally a handful of times, and then after that, he had everybody else calling, but it was still the same answer. Fuck off and hang up the phone.
So they
Sorry, I
weren't
don't know
really
if I can cuss
close.
on here or not. Sorry, I should
Oh,
have
that's
asked that
okay.
question first.
No, that's fine. You're good. So throughout the years, they weren't very close. They didn't have a great relationship.
My dad and Vince?
Yeah.
No, not at
Okay.
all. Not at all. I don't, just want to go talk crazy about Vince, but he's kind of a slimy rat, and he definitely took advantage of everybody. You know, uh, I got this guy reaching out to me all the time. They do some playing cards. They make them at their house. It's a wrestling playing card thing. I'm like, I can't even really remember what it's called, but he's like calls me all the time. He's wanting to add my dad onto this playing card thing. And I told him, I'm like, I can't. I can contact you through the contact with WWE, but he's like a pretty much a old school musician who was fucked out of all their rights. So he doesn't own. That they own his even his legal name. His names, likeness, all ring names. Everything is completely owned and trademarked by WWE or
Uh, uh,
whatever it is now, TKO,
yeah, yeah.
whatever.
So him being in video games, him having an action figure, that wasn't done through you and the family. That was they have the
No, that's
rights to
all
that.
through them. We have no say so on that. Which obviously I want them in the games. My kids play the
Sure.
games and stuff. But if I were to say no, don't put them in the game, I have no control. They do whatever they want to do.
Wow. Okay. Man. So after the fact, when he was kind of winding down or out of wrestling, you got a little bit older. Did you ever go back and watch like all of his WWF matches over the years or?
I haven't watched all of them, but I've watched a lot of the promos, and I've watched a lot of the matches. I was never really that interested in watching them until having a son, and my son, it's Sid hung in the world. That's his popper. That's the number one guy. So we do oftentimes sit there on YouTube or which it was on Netflix. Well, is it still on Netflix? I don't remember. I don't think it is. It
They do have
moved it.
wrestling on Netflix. Yeah.
Yeah. Or when he passed away, they had it was maybe it was on Hulu's then, I think. They had a small like page column dedicated to him. We went through and watched a lot of the stuff then. It's kind of something we just had playing at the house throughout the following weeks of his passing.
Sure. And how was your father as a man? How was he around the house? How was he with you? I know you were younger, but
Uh, you know, when I was younger, he was really great. It's when I got older that he wasn't that great. He really loved kids, but by the time he got to the age you could talk back, he didn't have much much for you. We did have a good relationship, but we had a hard relationship. The last 10 years of his life, we were real touch and go. Which I will say that the time he passed, we had fixed our relationship, and we were talking at that time. Partially to me being on the road 280 days a year myself, that we had enough distance in between us that we were able to have a good relationship, talk on the phone from 3,000 miles away, see each other for that weekend when I'm home, etc.
and you never had any aspirations to be a pro wrestler yourself.
Uh, you know, he didn't want me to. So he did not want that as the cards he was dealt. He did not want me or my brother to have anything to do with it. He didn't want us to do with the stress on our body. He didn't want us to do with the injuries. He didn't want us to deal with the shady people that you have to work for. Uh, and I'm 32 now, and I'm going to make a small push for it. I'm not going to push for the WWE or anything, but I do plan on by the end of the year being so big that they want me. So we'll see how that goes.
Oh wow, that's excellent. And you mentioned a couple times, you're always on the road yourself. You're traveling. What do you do for work exactly?
I work for a production company. It's really a worldwide company called the Fuse Technical Group. I'm a freelancer for them, an audio and visual technician. We do. I'm mostly on live events for corporate shows and stuff, but the company itself, they do the Marvel movies, the Avengers, the what's that new TV show with the red dude that's missing his nose?
I'm not too sure.
The Fallout, the new Fallout, like we do the
Oh yeah,
Fallout, So we do, instead of using green screens like they traditionally would in movies, now they use our virtual studio. So we go in and we set up really high tech LED walls in a circle, and they film inside of that. And that's part of the reason why, like, if you're if you're a fan of the Marvel saga, why they started pumping stuff out so fast. It's like, we got 4 TV shows coming out this month. We got 3 movies coming out. It's because, before you think about, you're sitting there, you're an actor, you got a green screen behind you, the director's, you got a T-Rex chasing you, action, it's like, you have to, think of all this stuff, that you're being told what's around you. You don't really know. But now when you're in this virtual studio, it's all on the LED wall. You look around, there's the fucking dragon, to be scared. So it made the acting so much more efficient, that they're able to pump it out a lot faster. And that's why we kind of got that flood of content, over the past few years.
Wow. And what areas do you travel?
I'm primarily in Vegas. We do a lot of corporate events there at the convention centers, the casinos, the Allegiant Stadium, T-Mobile Arena, Michelob Arena, the Grand Garden Arena. We're in those, pretty much weekly. Even, I'm not on all of the shows. Obviously, we have shows going 24/7. I mean, it was a huge company. I mean, just on the, we do music touring too. So our company's the one that just did the Chris Brown Breezy Bowl. We just did the Zach Bryan tour, which just beat got the world record for attendance in, what was it, Michigan, for like 119,000 people or something.
Wow.
So now, like, that stuff, I'm not on the concert tours, but I can attend them. I can go to them. So, like, when we're there and they're in Vegas, I always go backstage, check everything out, go out in the crowd and watch the show. But primarily, I'm on the corporate side, which we do have big performers all the time. We had I'm not. This is another thing too, is I'm not exactly sure what I'm allowed to and what I'm not allowed to talk about, because there's so many NDAs. But we had a small private show at Allegiant Stadium, where the Raiders Stadium there in Vegas. We had a pretty big country music band. I'm not going to say their name, but it was just for like 800 people. So it's real surreal stuff like that.
Wow, that's cool. So you're getting all kinds of inside experiences.
I saw my backstage passes hanging up on the wall back there.
Yeah, I did notice that. Yeah, that's awesome. Very cool. And how long have you been doing this?
I just started probably about 18 months ago.
Nice.
Well, I got really lucky. One of my good friends, he's a high up account executive, and he's the one that builds and sells a lot of these shows. And he'd been offering me a job for probably 6 or 7 years. And to be honest, I met this guy online playing video games. So this is a pretty wild story. But I didn't think he was telling the truth. I always thought he was gaslighting me, because I'm sitting there talking to him. We're playing a game. I'm like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "I'm backstage in my office." I'm like, "Backstage is your office?" Like, he's like, "Yeah." He's like, "Snoop Dogg just walked by." I'm like, "Yeah, get out of here," whatever. It turns out all that was true. He's got this really badass office. He ships it around the country on the truck. It rolls out. It's got 4 or 5 computer screens, his printers, everything he needs right there in the mobile office. So he does a lot of gaming backstage. Not really. He did with me. He doesn't anymore. I haven't seen him gaming backstage, but
Wow.
That's how we met. That's how I got into it. It was, like I said, about 18 months ago, I was like, he at this time he got more comfortable, and he started like sending me pictures and stuff. And I was like, maybe this is real. I was like, and he's like, well, I'm gonna send you the onboarding information. And he had all these people start emailing me from all these corporations, like, shit, this is legit. And I signed up for it, and I haven't looked back. It really is the opportunity of a lifetime. The people that I work with, they all, have a little animosity towards me because they had to go 20 years, pretty much like if you want to do wrestling, they went through the small independent circuits. They started off building rings. They went to the ref, not, legitly, but that's how they started to get to where they're at. And I kind of, I'm not above any of them for sure. Where I work, I'm one of the lowest guys on the totem pole, but the totem pole is pretty freaking high, so.
Hey, when an opportunity arises,
Yeah, you got to take it.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what is day to day like for you? You get there, what are you setting up? What are you doing exactly?
Well, let's go through my real day to day. So I wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I go in my kitchen. I eat me 4 boiled egg whites, and I'll have one yoke or two yokes. I usually just do one before the gym, and then I'll have me a nice thick peanut butter sandwich, fix my pre-workout, my protein shake, take a shower, put on my gym clothes, go to the gym, lift for an hour and a half, have me a nice protein shake, come back, eat a couple more egg whites, another egg yolk or two,
Wow.
and then oatmeal, shower, get ready, and then I go to work for the day. And then my day at work, my gym day depends on what time I have to go to work. The gym's 24 hours. If I gotta go to work at 6 a.m., I'm gonna go to the gym at 3. If I gotta go to work at 8, I'm gonna go to the gym at 4:30. I'm gonna get that in there 7 days a week. I'm consistently at 53 days straight right now without missing a single day, even travel days. Flying across the country, coming home and going straight to the gym. But it's definitely a thing, so I go to work. A lot of times, it's like I'm going back to Vegas in a couple weeks, or the day after Thanksgiving. I fly back to Vegas, and I'm not actually doing a show in Vegas. We're prepping a show in Vegas. The show's actually going to be in San Francisco, so I'll go from Vegas to San Francisco for 5 days. Then I'll come home from there. Then I go back to Vegas right before Christmas to prep another show that's in Orlando. So we don't just work in Vegas, but our shop's in Vegas. That's where all of our gear is at. I mean, we do have warehouses all across the country, but my crew, like the Honey Badger video sticker on that Pelican right there, we're our own crew. We're based out of Vegas, so everything we do, shows in Mexico, we're going to Vegas first. So Vegas, 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 Vegas. I think I've definitely been there at least 200 days this year.
Wow. Wow. That's
Yeah.
crazy. So you're a big boy, just like your father. How tall are you?
6'9".
So you're a legit 6'9". They always build
Six.
your father as 6'9". Wasn't he 6'9"?
He was for years, and then he wasn't because he shrunk as he got older.
Sure.
I'll say by the time he passed away, he was probably 6'6" and a half. Because I had gotten taller than him, and I wasn't growing anymore. He was shrinking. I was still measuring myself, but when I was 15, 16, I was 6'9". He still was too. So he didn't start shrinking till really after that. So he was built as his real height, and really when he had on his wrestling boots, he was 6'10". So that's why when you see him with someone like I can't even remember the wrestlers' names. What is it?
Shawn Michaels.
I was thinking about somebody that's just like 2 inches taller than I'm. Like
like a Kevin Nash, maybe.
yes, yeah, like Kevin Nash. But you see him, and they're almost eye to eye because those boots are really putting him up there with the two.
Yeah.
Be honest, the shoes they make nowadays, you get 2.5 inches. He could have been 7 foot.
Right. Now, being 6'9", is it difficult to travel so much? I mean, does that add anything to it or not really?
It is. It is difficult to travel because a lot of flights are going to be Southwest Airlines, which doesn't have assigned seating, and I mean I have to have at least exit row at the minimum. The seats, a regular airline, I try to preferably fly first class. If the ticket's too expensive, my work doesn't pay for it, I'll pay for the upgrade, whatever. But it's if it's not an option, I have to have at least exit row. But the regular seat, it hurts my hips pretty bad because it squeezes me pretty good. But if I were to sit in a seat that's not exit row, my knees were to hit the seat in front of me, and I wouldn't actually be able to get my butt down to the seat. I'd kind of just be sitting there floating in the chair the whole flight, and they won't actually let you fly like that. So it is difficult, and it's another hassle is carrying a gym bag, 2 checked bags of luggage, a backpack, and a lot of times my Pelican too, with all my gear in it, carrying all that through the airports and stuff that can really add up to you. But it's traveling's fine, for the most part. I always rent a full size car everywhere I go, so I always got the cars, always fit in the car well. I'm gonna have an Expedition or a Suburban or a Wagoneer or something everywhere I go. I'm not gonna be in a Jetta.
Yeah. Now you said you've put some thought into giving it a go for wrestling eventually. If you were to do something, did you have a game plan? Did you already think of maybe some things that you would do or where you would wrestle or?
Well, I got several buddies that run independent promotions in the Memphis area and the Mid-South area right here in the tri-state area. But it's they obviously they always want me to work for them. That's they as soon as I said something about going, because I've made an announcement on Facebook the other day that I was going to take 6 bookings for the fall of 2026, And everybody's just been messaging me. It's like, hey, can you do January? Can you do February? I'm like, no. I'm in a full body transformation right now. I just dropped 100 pounds of fat. And then I'm trying to drop another 30 in fat. I'm trying to lean up some more, but I'm also trying to put on a good 80 or 100 in muscle. So I want to be 310 and lean. So that's the goal.
And what's your secret to shedding a large amount like that in a quick amount of time?
Well, for me right now, I'm able to do extra because I'm off until after Thanksgiving. So, I have 7 days a week all day long. Now, when I'm at work, it's a little more tedious, but what helps at work is I do 40,000 steps a day when we're setting up the shows and loading out the shows. Like during the show, I might not, only do 20,000, but if we're loading in a show and taking out a show, striking or loading in, I'm doing 40,000 steps that day. So that's 20 miles, so I'm getting plenty of cardio naturally without going to the gym the day in. I'm still going to the gym on top of it. But at home, I didn't. I go to the gym every day. I wake up at home, hit the road at 5:45. I get to the gym at 6. I get leave the gym about 7:45. Get back home at 8. A nice hour and a half workout, and then I come home. I refuel, have a little eggs, oatmeal, and then I get on my. I have a really nice Nautilus stationary bike, and I get on that and I ride it for an hour or two and watch TV, and then on leg days and the day after leg day, I go to the track. So tomorrow I'm doing legs in the morning, and I got a gimbal and a camera. I'm going to take it with me and do some recordings and make some reels of me doing some not super heavy squats, but probably 405 or something, just real slow and controlled. Just make some reels of me doing a little legs tomorrow, and then when I get out of the gym, I'm going to go to the high school track because I really love going up there, especially right now because it's between 65 and 75 degrees. The weather's perfect. So I'm going to go out there tomorrow, and I got a drone. I'm going to take my drone with me, and I'm going to, I have 3 batteries, about 45 minutes of flight on each battery. I'm going to have it follow me around each time. I spend 2 hours out there every time I go. After leg day, I'm going to run about 70 sets of bleachers at 70 times up, 70 times down, 140 up and down total. And then I'm going to walk about 6 miles while I'm doing that. And then the day after that, to really just torch my legs, because I have such, that's one thing where my legs are already currently bigger than my dad's ever were. And my legs are a lot naturally bigger than his. And they're so dense that I have to torch them. I mean, I have to hit legs heavy at the gym, then I have to go run all at the track, then I have to do my jogging around the track, then I have to go walk another 7 miles the next day just to get my calves to really start to burn, but when I was running my numbers at the end of the week, Sunday, what was it, yesterday, and I ended up a total burn of 32,952 calories for the week, and I only took in 18,468.
Wow.
So there's about 3,500 pounds of 3,500 calories roughly per pound of fat. Everybody's going to burn a little different. Everyone says you do too much cardio, you're going to burn your muscle. And by wearing the shit out of my legs, I'm not burning the muscle in my chest, my biceps, my triceps, my traps, my back, any of that stuff. Absolutely not burning that muscle. It's going to take the fat first. The fat's easier to digest than the muscle is. And then I'm losing my train of thought. The thing about it is I could be bulking up a lot faster. If I was burning 35,000 calories a week and I was taking in 35,000 calories a week, I wouldn't be really losing any fat. I would still lose a little bit, but I'd be putting on a lot more muscle. But right now, for the next 5 months, I'm going to attack it really aggressively, not going for putting on a whole lot of muscle this next 5 months, going on for really just getting rid of the fat. And at the moment, I see that I have the fat at a really controllable spot that I can just, torch, because you get down to that one little spot, then, you could really like the bodybuilders, how they do it, they get fat on off season, they get right back off. When you do get your body in shape, it's really easy to drop and lower that rate real fast and already have a great metabolism anyway. So when I get to that, then I am going to up my carbohydrate slot and I'm going to swell up pretty quick. And that's the game plan anyway.
Yeah. Did your father have any great keepsakes over the years? Anything from his career that maybe you still have, whether it be outfits or? Anything that he got along the years?
uh, you know, the thing about it is he was a little too giving, and he really gave most of that stuff away. I still have a pair of his boots. I still have one of his leather vests. Uh, you know, um, but besides that, he really, he gave the other. He had, probably 6 pair of wrestling boots. He gave the other 5 away, and it wasn't to people that wore size 15, or actually 14 is what he wore. I wore 15, but it wasn't someone that wore size 14. It was a fan that wanted them. So he gave all that stuff away. You know, every time they'd come out with a new action figure or doll of 'em or whatever you want to call it, you know, before it would go on the market, and still, even that he's passed away, they still send them to me first. But before the new dolls come out, they would always send us like 20 of them. And it was like a lot of these. This is like from the get go, from the time he started it to current day. Even after being retired, they still every time new dolls come out, he'd get them and he'd give them all away, every single one of them. He would leave one of them and tell us to open it up and play with it. So none of that stuff really made it. I'm sure our neighbors have it, but we don't really have a lot. My mom does. My mom was, she was kind of the Anne Frank of the wrestling dolls. She hid them away in the attic.
Nice.
So she does have a lot of them. She won't let me have them. I've asked, but and then one of my good buddies, like tag team partner, Stumpy Buzzkill, he owns a little um, barbecue restaurant here in town, and they got a sports bar in there and all the flat screen TVs with all the games on them and stuff. But what he also has in there is he's got old school wrestling playing 24/7, and he's got the current wrestling playing 24/7. He's got a small midget wrestling ring in the restaurant, and he's got all the action figures and pictures and belts and everything all over
Wow.
the wall. It's a really cool setup, and he has a lot of my dad's memorabilia. Because he, was one of the ones that was gifted the stuff over the years,
Ah, okay. Very nice. Well,
and old enough not to open it,
right.
which it's not that I wasn't even old enough not to open it, is I was told to open it, so that's what we did.
Yeah.
You tell me and my degenerate friends to open the action figures and play with them. We're out there in the mud hole playing with them in the backyard.
Yeah. Well, it's nice to see that, even though all of it didn't stay in the family, some of it is in the hands of somebody who cherishes it and will display it, like you said, at the restaurant. So that's nice.
Right.
Keep the legacy going. And that's interesting that you say that they have the rights to the figures, yet they still send you the figures first.
I mean, they don't send them as okay. It's just like, here's a sample of your stuff we're sending out next month.
Wow.
Enjoy, and then, they, since he's passed away, they send, me and my mom and my brother, we all 3 get a royalty check. And it's really pathetic when you go through there and look at like what percentage you're actually getting of this stuff. Because I mean, if it's a $30 doll, we might get 3 cents of it. It's ridiculous.
Right.
It's gotta, they gotta sell millions of something before it's a couple $100.
Yeah.
It's nuts.
Did your father ever talk about his time in WCW? Obviously, other than the injury, did he enjoy working for the other side?
Uh, you know, I think he did. Mostly because it was more
Not
it's more
Vince
show,
McMahon?
and not Vince McMahon, and it was more showbiz. Ted Turner flew in to our little municipal airport here in town. Not a international airport, a little private airport, on his private plane, and they went out there and signed the contract on the tarmac in his plane, right in West Memphis, Arkansas. And he liked Ted, and I would say that I like WCW better than WWF, WC, or and what is it, WWE.
Yeah.
I like it better than that, just because it was more showmanship, more pow in your face, more let's see what crazy thing we can do next week, instead of let's play the same wore out song we've played for the last 6 years.
Yeah. Who were some of your father's closest friends in the business, and did you ever see any of them at the house?
Uh, you know, I would have to say that his favorite one out of them, I don't some of them are still alive and some of them aren't, so it's hard to say, because I don't know who's going to watch this. But I would have to say that, probably Scott Hall was his favorite, even though they did butt heads and, get into arguments. They always made up, and they were good friends. Scott was a real bad alcoholic. And he came and stayed with us, and my dad sobered him up, got him in the gym. They were lifting every day. We went, across the country doing all these little shows, from here to Kentucky, Indiana, Illinois, whatever. Um, and we had a lot of fun with Scott, and they were always, even after Scott left, they still had, conversations. They still talked a lot, but outside of Scott, he didn't really have many friends in the wrestling business. Doug Gilbert. Doug Gilbert was a friend of his. He came to the house all the time. But he is he made more enemies than friends. The Sycho Sid Vicious. It wasn't just an act. There was a little truth behind that Psycho Vicious.
Yeah.
And but now he could be hard to deal with, but he was also really fun and cool to be around if you were the right person. If you were homeless or a stray dog, he was really nice to you. But if you were, the same status he was, he didn't really care. Um, it's a dog eat dog world out there. He definitely ate a bunch of them.
Yeah.
And he didn't make a whole lot of friends doing it. But he was good at what he did, and the crowd loved him. So that's all that mattered.
Yeah, growing up as a fan, he was one of my absolute favorites. I mean, literally, I would say top 3 for me. And I remember I went to a house show for the WWF, 1996, and I'm sitting right beside the rail where, if you kind of look down, it's kind of where like the hockey players would walk out normally.
Yeah.
So I'm watching the show forward, and I see that your father's standing there, kind of watching some of the matches, and nobody else really notices because they're all looking forward, and I happen to just see him there, and I'm like, oh my gosh, at this point I hadn't met him, one of my faves, and I look down, he sees me, we make eye contact, he kind of just gives me a wink and gives me the fist pound, puts his fist up there, and I was like, man, that little moment, that small moment,
Yeah.
meant so much as a fan.
Well, that's I mean, that's when, that's why I say he didn't make many friends in the wrestling business, was when it came down to that. He cared about the asses in the seats and not the guys backstage.
Right.
He and then, he felt like he was better than a lot of them. I mean, and physically he really was better than 90% of them.
Yeah, absolutely.
I really don't know. There's, like, yes, John Cena's probably been more cut and bigger than him, but he's also 4 foot fucking tall. So it's not as hard to do, so someone of his stature, I don't, really know that, Kevin Nash was never in that shape,
No.
for sure. He was
No.
big, but he was never that big. He
Yeah.
was never that cut. He was never that dedicated. A lot of those guys, a lot of the wrestlers, their downfall was they like to go out and party and drink. My dad didn't. And that's probably why he didn't make friends with a lot of them, because while they were busy going out, he was busy going to do his cardio. He was going to the gym,
Right.
which, he did. He did travel with a lot of them. I would say he's a decent friend with, Booker T, Brian Knobs, Superfly Jimmy Snuka, Terry Funk, a couple other people that he generally enjoyed being around when we went to these small shows. It was pretty funny. First time I met Jimmy Superfly Snuka, I was just started wrestling, probably 16, 17 years old, and we're at the Insane Clown Posse gathering in Hog Rock, Illinois. 60,000 screaming juggalos out there. Currently not at show site. We're at a Marriott in Evansville, and they're all in a hotel room smoking weed. It's my dad, Scott, Kevin, Jimmy. There's so many wrestlers that were there. It's hard to recall who all was actually in the room. They all keep trying to pass me the joint. I'm like, oh, I did smoke weed, but my dad didn't know. So I was like, oh, no, not me, not me, not me. But what I will remember for the rest of my life is every time it went around to Jimmy, he would hit it through his nose and go to pass it to one of the other guys. Like, no, I'm good, man. You keep it. You keep it. So eventually I look over and Jimmy's sitting there and he's just got a joint in between all of his fingers. Just
Oh man. Oh, Jimmy.
But Jimmy went on to, tell me how much potential I had and how great I looked and all this stuff. And he had to kiss me on the lips at least 100 times over those 2 days. And it's like the moment we were leaving, we're like, bye, Jimmy. When everything's finally over, I get in the car, the door shuts, we start rolling off. My dad looks over at me, looks me in the eyes, says, that guy killed his girlfriend. I was like, what? he's like, that guy's a murderer. I was like, what? I didn't.
Oh man. Wow.
Poor joke, but still, I was like, I had no clue. I had never heard the Jimmy story. That's how sheltered I was to it. I never heard about the girlfriend hotel room side of the road dead
Sure.
thing. So it was, but yeah, Jimmy Snuka kissed me on the lips 100 times. I would say that's the nicest wrestler I ever met was Jimmy Snuka. A little too nice.
Yeah. Geez. So the Hall of Fame, the WWE Hall of Fame, obviously, your father has expressed in the past that he wanted to be a part of it. What are your thoughts on him ever going into the Hall of Fame?
Well, shortly after his leg break and stuff, around that time, not not super soon, like next day, you want to go to Hall of Fame, you're old, you're retired, but several years later, they reached out to him. They wanted him to do the Legends deal. They wanted him to do the Hall of Fame. And he said, no. And he had the mindset, he said, if you're in the Hall of Fame or if you're a legend, that means you're old and washed up. And I'm not fucking old or washed up. His words, but, at that time, I mean, he still was a force to be reckoned with. The doctor said he'd never walk again after he broke his leg, and he was running bleachers just a couple months later. He made a full recovery with one leg being almost an inch or two shorter than the other one after that. But it was, he didn't let it slow him down. He made the recovery, and he would have went back to WWF if Vince McMahon would have groveled a little more. He almost groveled enough, and he would have went back. But he really wanted him to beg him. And then when he broke his leg, he got screwed out of a pretty good contract, and he wanted to make sure that was ironclad if he came back in. And they weren't too whatever. Really a loss on their end.
Yeah.
To me, it's like Vince is the curator. He's the puppet master. It wouldn't be there. It wouldn't be a thing if it wasn't for him. But at the same time, you have to pander to your talent. I mean, you have to, you gotta please your talent. Vince wasn't the one filling the arenas. Maybe at one point in time, he put some people in the seats, but when it came down to it, the big guys were filling the arenas. I always like to just bring up the time that my dad was, in a match against Hulk Hogan. And when he went out there, Hulk Hogan's a baby face, my dad's the heel, and the crowd booed Hogan, and they cheered my dad, and they edited that on live TV and swapped the cheers and the applause around. You look that up, that's true.
Wow.
But that was stuff like that. Like here he is coming out screaming at the top of his lungs, shut up, and people are saying, yeah, let's go see it, let's go, yeah,
Yeah.
Fuck you, Hogan. Sorry, Hogan, he just died too. They're both dead, so I feel like I could throw a little fuck you in there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, yeah. It's without a doubt. I mean, your father is probably easily one of the most popular baby faces of all time when he was a baby face. I mean, he was so over. The ovations were just...
Well, they had to make him a baby. They didn't want him to be a baby face. They wanted him to be a heel because he had that psycho vicious mentality. But the crowd loved that psychoness so much. They were like, well, shit, we got to have a psycho. We got to have a psycho baby. And that's what they did. They had a psycho baby.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, looking at him, he's a heel all day, without a doubt.
I mean, if you go to Walmart, you'll see that people really love their psycho babies. They're buying them all kind of shit in there.
Right. I was there for the 1997 King of the Ring. It was Sycho Sid teaming with the Legion of Doom against Owen Hart, the British Bulldog, Davey Boy Smith, and Jim the Anvil Neidhart. 6-man tag, some of my favorites in there. Obviously, your father, and just the ovation that he got at the Providence Civic Center that night on pay-per-view was deafening. So that just shows you, and that was later in his career, for WWF anyway. So it just shows you that he always had it. He always had the fans in his corner. So, and even went on to WCW after that, and they were still in his corner.
I mean, yeah, and even like when he did the shows at the Dallas Sportatorium against the Von Erichs, he got to pop over the Von Erichs, and that was their place.
Sure.
That's Von Erich territory, and so to get a pop there is a big thing too.
Yeah.
So
And if you had to pick a favorite,
But also the match you just mentioned, I just want to put it out there in perspective for you. I was 4 years old, so
right, right. Yeah, you were more so just after the injury. You're kind of more like, you knew what was going on, right, with WCW.
Yeah, so I think I was 7 when he broke his leg.
Okay.
So, I remember when he came home, the neighbors are, real religious. They came over and prayed for him all the time. He had the staples, 2 big long sets of them, from his knee to his ankle. And I would do, this is like one of the memories I have of it. It's kind of a funny, like, kid memory, is that we're sitting there and I'm sitting on his ottoman. He always had a chair and a half. You know what a chair and a half is, right?
Yeah.
It's like not quite a love seat. He always had a chair and a half and a big ottoman. So he's sitting there, and I'd sit on his ottoman all the time when I was a kid. When I'm sitting there on it, he's got his leg up on it. Staples right next to me and stuff. I was like, "That's gross." It's gross. He's like, "Touch it." I was like, "No." He's like, "Touch it." No. He's like, "Touch the leg." No. So I didn't touch the leg. He wanted me to. And then it's like 4 or 5 days passed, and we're sitting there watching TV, and I just reached over there and rubbed my hands down it. He flipped out. He was like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "Oh, you said touch it." He's like, "That was days ago." It was a big thing. He came home, broken leg on a walker. He still went to the gym every day on a walker. There's local stories here. He's a local gym legend in the tri-state area here. There's not a barbell that he had been around here, but it's he goes in the gym one day, and there's this guy in there. Not a big guy, but he's a fit guy, and he dad comes in on the walker. I'm trying to remember the guy's name. I think it's Kerry, but anyway, he says something along the lines of, "Look at that old crippled coming in here." And that fucking walker went across the room at him. He hobbled over there on one leg and beat that guy's ass. I mean, it was quick. I will say that it is one thing that I can say about my father that I don't know if a lot of other wrestlers can say, is he has actually been in more street fights than anybody I know, from the time he was a teenager to the past few years. He still would have instances with people always, when you're the big guy, people are always going to try you. And when you have, I have the same mentality. When you have our mentality, if you test us, you're gonna fail the test.
Yeah,
we're gonna pass.
right. And we should know this going into it.
Yeah. I mean, usually when I stand up, that's enough. Everybody, "Oh, okay, man, that's fine."
Yeah, fight's over.
Or you slap the first guy, and then everyone else is like, "Shit, you hear that? I don't know. No, thank you." And they kind of just powder out.
So he's been known as Lord Humongous. He's been Sycho Sid. He's been Sid Vicious. He's been Sid Justice. Is there a favorite? If you had to pick one, favorite gimmick?
I'm petty, so I would have to say Sid Vicious, because fuck the Sex Pistols. I don't know. That's a thing too. It's like he had to stray away from that. That's where the whole Sycho Sid came in. It's because when they would perform up north, the people would get a big confusion between the artist and him. So that's when they started really throwing in the Sycho Sid. But I don't know. Sycho Sid Vicious, Sid Steel, Sid Justice, Lord Humongous. I did the Lord Humongous when I was a teenager. That's what he got me to start wrestling as. I did that for several years, and actually made an announcement on Facebook a week or so ago that I was going to take 6 bookings for the fall as Lord Humongous. But that last part is actually kind of up in the air. The Lord Humongous, when I go, I already got a couple bookings, but when I go out on them, I told the people, don't advertise me, because I'm not quite sure I'll have a better answer June or July on how fast my body is actually coming into shape and how fast I am transforming. If I am in good or decent shape, then I plan on going out no shirt, no mask, as myself. If I still haven't got to exactly where I want to, I'm probably going to hide behind the mask and do the Lord Humongous thing. But it's a fun character, Lord Humongous is,
Yeah.
because he doesn't really get beat. You know,
Right.
nobody slams Lord Humongous, and there's one thing I don't like is being picked the fuck up. I don't like that. There's I don't know if there's anything more settling than being 310 pounds and having a man that's 100 pounds less than you pick you up. I don't know about, it's, um, I will say I did a match in Jonesboro, Arkansas, 14 years ago, and it was, I was doing this angle working up against these guys called the Gorillas, who legitly had a combined weight of 1,000 pounds.
Wow.
Uh, and they were both linemen in the NFL at one point in time, or maybe they just played college, whatever they were. I'm not exactly sure their background. Don't let me lie on that too much. They for sure played football. They were linemen, college, NFL, not 100%. Don't let me overstep. But the thing was that so they had me handcuffed, and they carried me out there on their shoulder.
Oh my
Uh,
gosh.
just walked me to the ring, and they walk like gorillas because their tag team names the Gorillas. So like he's not only carrying me on his shoulder, but he's like swaying me damn near to the ground every time he goes over to my side. But I mean, just like a baby up the steps, throws me over the top rope into the center of the ring. I'm just like shit. And then that one of those guys ended up cracking my sternum. Because they just, I stayed handcuffed in the middle of the ring. They just hit their little spots. One of them did a roll, one of them did a frog splash, but one of them dropped the elbow. And both those guys were really not trained yet. Not that I was either. I've just never had any proper training, but these guys were still in school. They were really green at it. It was their first coming out thing. They're trying to get them over being this big, powerful duo. But when the guy, came down to drop the elbow, wrestling, you drop the elbow, you drop it like this. He dropped it like he was dropping a real elbow on somebody.
Oh,
So he came down and he legitly dropped his elbow on my sternum, and it cracked my sternum. So I'm sitting there in this hockey mask, and it immediately just takes knocks the wind out of you. I can't, so it knocks the wind out of me. My sternum's cracked. So I'm like crying, trying to breathe because it hurts so bad. I got this mask on. Nobody can tell nothing's happened. No one knows that I'm injured here. And so now they dropped a leg on me. They wanted to do a frog splash off the top rope, or they fucking did a roll. Like, all that shit came after he cracked my sternum. It was pretty wild. We
my
got back
God.
there. They took the mask off of me. My chest was black and blue for a while, but it was a fun time. Definitely something memorable. My dad was there. Scott Hall was there. That was for a show for a guy named Rodney Mack. Um,
Yeah.
his wife Jazz.
Yep.
Yeah. Rodney Mack and Jazz. They had a promotion there in Jonesboro, Arkansas. I wrestled for them every Saturday for probably 6 months.
And did you say you're going to be starting your own podcast?
Yeah, that's I recently just ordered all this podcast gear. And I'm gonna start a podcast. It's gonna be called Show Tells and Hotels, where we talk about shows and hoes. And mean shows and hoes. I said that, my wife was like, "You got hoes?" She immediately starts. I don't mean my show tells and my hotels. I mean show tells in general and hotels in general. And not hotels is I picked this girl up at the bar and brought her home. Hotels is in look at what that hoe over there is doing, and could be anybody, unisex.
Yeah.
It's just a play on words there. I feel like and I feel like it's a kind of like a catchy thing with really the way the world's going right now. I think you have to be kind of on the nose to get a little attention. But and show tells and hotels, because it'll primarily be filmed in my hotel rooms,
Gotcha.
because I'm on the road most of the time. I'll obviously do some home shows, but I'm gonna set up studios, and always get a suite. I'm gonna set studios up in the living room of my hotel room, and then have a couple of the guys I work with come in. Have patch people in online. Maybe use StreamYard like this, whatever. Get I'll bring people in from across the country, but bring in local people too, because I mean the guys I work with, a lot of them been doing this for 40 years, and they've some of them worked for the circus, some of them worked for WWF, some of them worked for WCW. Two of the cameramen, rest one of them just passed away from cancer just a couple months ago, Charlie and Zooks. But they they were they they run a lot of the cameras for One of them still, they ran a lot of the cameras for our shows, and then that every time I see them, they'd always tell me they used to be the cameramen for WCW. They were always there. Which my boss I worked for, he had, he's done stuff for the wrestling stuff. They use their own production company that travels around with them. Speaking of, if anybody from the WWE ever sees this, we can give you a better production.
There we go. So you said your relationship with your father was touch and go. What's your fondest memory of your father?
You know, the memories that get to me the most are the recent ones with him and my kid. I have all the videos of him and my son. My dad had an old 1969 Ford Bronco. They would go ride it around the wildlife refuge and get out and mess with turtles and raccoons, skunks, or whatever they ran into. They would just get out there in the wildlife, pick up trash and all that stuff. And that's my dad recorded a lot of that stuff. So really, my best memories of him are with my son and him, not primarily me. We did have a lot of good times. I went a lot of places with him. He took me everywhere in the world. I was definitely spoiled as a child. Disney World, whatever, all that stuff, all the water parks, all the snow cabin vacations in the winter, all the lakes in the summer. Actually, that's a one-on-one thing with me and him. That would probably have to be like, something I'm going to end up doing with my son. And something I really enjoyed is we would go to the lake. And we would either go and we would stay at a hotel there because it's like a 3-hour drive, or we would wake up super early and go. But we had 2 jet skis. We would hit the water at sunrise, 6:30 in the morning when it's glass out there, real smooth. We take those jet skis and we would just hammer them full throttle, and we would do the whole perimeter of the lake. And it's a really big lake. We'd have to stop at several marinas and get gas, and we wouldn't make it back to the boat ramp until about 5 o'clock in the afternoon. That's how long it took.
Wow.
But we did that all the time. I actually, if I get my mouse to turn on here, still trying to figure out how to work this thing. That is the lake that I just zoomed past right there on that picture.
Oh, wow.
That right there. So it's connected by a small river. So we would start right in here, and we would do the whole thing, and we would run the whole thing. We'd hit up the river and get the top part of it too, and come back around. I mean, it's a 46,000 acre lake or something like that. It's pretty big.
Oh, it's nice that you were able to do that.
And that's I don't know, and we had some really cool stuff up there. He had a really wealthy friend up there who had this beautiful 4-story log cabin on the lake. It had a basement that had like a 4-lane bowling alley, air hockey, foosball, pool tables. It's on a hill on the lake, so it didn't flood. So like he had like those Kawasaki mules, the side by sides. This is like when those things, the gas powered golf carts, like when they first came out, he had like 6 of them side by side at the top of the hill, so you could drive it down to the boat ramp at the back of the house. And so down at the water, this man had a Corvette racing boat. I mean, it had the flip up headlights, the tail lights, and everything on it. It's the only one I've ever seen in my life. He had a 2-story party barge and a 3-story party barge that was 4 pontoons wide. It was ridiculous. They threw big parties there. The kind of money that guy had, like when he would say, "Yeah, y'all go to my house." We'd go there when he wasn't even there. So we get there and just paint the picture for you. Nobody's there except for the service, the crew that works there. We walk in, there's a guy in the main hall when you walk in playing the piano. Like they got a pianist and they're playing the piano all day long. They got maids, they got cooks, lunch menus, dinner menus, whatever you want. It was a really cool place. We had a lot of fun at the lake, a lot of fun there. But I would say the most just one-on-one time would be me, him, and the 2 jet skis hitting the whole perimeter.
And where can fans follow you? If you anything set up yet for podcast or social media?
So not really set up yet. I have a decent following on Facebook. That's just kind of what I've always been on. When I do start the podcast, I'm probably gonna just stream live to multiple platforms. I'll probably do Facebook. this is the thing like Instagram. I haven't been on Instagram in so long. I went on there and posted a picture the other day because I got on there. I was like, I hadn't posted a picture on here in 10 years. So I went on there and deleted all the pictures of all my ex-wives because I didn't want to see those anymore. And then I added a new picture on there. But I suck. I suck at social media. I suck at editing my content. I have 8 terabytes of video from this past year that I have yet to even look at. And I mean, there's some real comedy gold in there for shorts, reels, even there's educational stuff in there as well too. But it's I'm working on. I got a guy right now who's about to start helping me with all that. I'm about to start uploading it all to Dropbox, let him go through all of it. He's going to try to edit some of it for me because, I mean, right now, like I'm at home, I have time if I want to do it right now. But when I'm on the road, you know, the gym is my only extra time I have is going
Yeah.
to the gym, and I don't even have enough time to go to the gym in the mornings, like to do I'll go lift in the mornings, but when I get off and I get back to my hotel, I'll go ride the stationary bike at the hotel for an hour or two if I'm not completely exhausted. If I didn't get that 40,000 steps that I wanted that day, I'll go put another hour or two in. So I don't have the time to sit down and do it.
Yeah.
But I got this guy. We'll see. We'll see how it works out. I'm sure he'll watch this video and we'll see. But
Well, something we can look
he will.
forward to.
I'm definitely going to figure it out. I'm in the AV industry. I work with hundreds of people this is what they somewhat what they do is audio and visual. It's what we got here, audio and visual.
Right.
So they do editing, all the graphics and all that stuff. So I'm going to try to push into it. My boss has supported me in it. He's told me he would come on as a guest. I might bring him on as my manager if I go back to wrestling. And God, I hope he doesn't watch this. In Vegas, all the guys, they've all coined him and gave him the nickname Suge White. Not Suge Knight, but Suge White because he's a big white guy. And once you work for him, or you're dead. Not really. He didn't kill people.
Right.
But
We know of.
yeah, exactly. I wouldn't put it past him. He's been going to the gym with me when I'm at work. My boss goes with me every day, so I am currently making him physically capable of killing people. So I would watch out. If any of my coworkers are watching this video, he might actually rip your head off one day.
And in closing, how do you want your father to be remembered? What do you feel his legacy is in the world of professional wrestling?
I think he should be. To me, he is the definition of a lab created wrestler. Like when you buy one of these wrestling games and you go in there and you make your character, I want to see 90% of them are giving the physique that he had. I'm not gonna say he's the greatest of all time because he did have a couple rough promos and he was good in the ring, but he wasn't cutting backflips off the top rope or anything. He wasn't in there doing a hurricanrana or whatever. There's definitely people that have more ring talent. I'm not gonna say he's the greatest of all time. But I'm not going to say who I think is either because I really don't have an opinion on it. I can tell you it's not. It's not Ric Flair. But anyway, I have some salt with Ric Flair about the Lauren Anderson stabbing thing still.
Yes.
I have some salt with Lauren too. Maybe I'll challenge him to a match. He's still alive, right?
He is.
I'm not going to challenge him to a match. I believe him and my dad, they worked it out. Just the business side. My dad really got hung up as the bad guy on that thing, and I mean, he was the one that got stabbed first. So I don't,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we'll see Arn Anderson against Lord Humongous in the future. You never know.
You never know. Anything's possible. I wouldn't say anything's impossible. I just ran into he says he just signed his contract with TNA or negotiated his contract with TNA while he was in the parking lot. It's Jimmy Morton's son.
Yeah, I
the Rock and Roll Express.
Yeah.
Little little skinny guy, and he really threw me off guard uh, when he shook my hand. You know how wrestlers shake hands,
Yeah,
especially the old ones, real light on the touch, right?
sure.
It shows you're light in the ring. And I hadn't shook a wrestler's hand in so long, and it really threw me off guard. And I squeezed the shit out of his hand. So I hope he knows that if it's ever me and him, he's gonna get one of those, you know.
Or he could be out with an injury already, and we don't even know. Excellent. Well, Gunnar, thank you so much for being here. For Gunnar Eudy, this is Joe Bruen, and this has been the All Access Entertainment Podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And again, Gunnar, thanks so much for being here.